to respect the timeline as well as your punctuality. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Abhinav Guha, who is our cybersecurity solutions architect as well as consultant. So Abhinav has prepared a beautiful set of slides for today's session, and I'm very happy to leave you in the hands of Abhinav. Thank you once again. Over to you, Abhinav.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Praveen. Just bear with me, guys. Just trying to figure out the recordings on this session. Just let me make sure that we are recording the session and then we'll get going. Just bear with me for a couple of seconds. Okay, looks like we're all good. Just a couple of things before we get going. Since this is a Teams meeting, I request you all to please keep your mics on mute as much as you can. Please direct yourself to the chat section in case you have any questions, queries, comments. Please feel free to interact with us, and Praveen will be taking notes of those. However, as I mentioned, please keep your mics on mute if you can. All right, with that said, let's move on. Welcome to the Ingram Micro Cyber Security Toolkit webinar. These are the slides that I have prepared for you guys. And let's start. I'll start briefly with our agenda, what we're going to be discussing. It won't be a very in-depth session, so to speak. It'll be more of a high-level introduction to the team, what we're kind of doing and our goals, our strategy, what we're doing as Ingram Micro Cyber Security. So we'll start first and foremost with an introduction, as I mentioned, of these points. We'll move over to something called a discovery report, which we do for our partners, resellers, and customers. I will briefly cover what that initiative is and how we approach this said initiative. Point number 3, CyberGram. So this is our in-house developed cybersecurity tool. It's a maturity assessment tool that I will be walking you through exactly what it does and what are the benefits and what you can get out of it, essentially. Point number 4, virtual lab. This is our pride and glory. Myself, as Praveen mentioned, I'm from the cybersecurity solutions team, solutions architect. So we work very closely in our virtual lab environment, and we have some really exciting and novel approaches to this strategy and how we cater to our partners using the virtual lab, and I'll be covering that very briefly. Point number 5, some other points, some other initiatives that we're working on currently. And finally, last but not the least, the action plan for you guys and how we can, to the best of our abilities, support each other in this endeavor. Right. So what is the cybersecurity toolkit? It's nothing but an amalgamation of disparate tools that we've worked on for a very, very long time, very closely with our technical engineers as well as our account managers, feedback from our end customers, and working very closely with our partners. So we have certain developed in-house tools, as I mentioned, CyberGram being one of them, the Discovery Report Initiative being another, Ingram Micro as a vendor. Yes, this is our high-level strategy that we are trying to accomplish over the next few years, is to try and develop as many cybersecurity tools as we can, push it to market, help our resellers position it to their partners, end customers, and so forth. As mentioned, this is mainly a lead generation initiative with regards to our discovery report. I'll be covering that. And the end goal for all of this is to foster customer trust. At the end of it, that's what we're trying to do, really. Try to gain traction with our customers, trying to gain their trust, being their trusted advisor, really, and working very closely with them with these initiatives. So that's the cybersecurity toolkit moving forward. So why do we have the cybersecurity toolkit? As I mentioned, Some of the initiatives here are geared very aligned with generating leads. So we work with our account managers and their partners in return to bring us business, essentially, generate business for us as well as the partners and provide solutions to the customers. Point number two, world's leading cybersecurity solutions provider. As you may have heard, Ingram Micro is one of the biggest distributors, IT distributors in the market, $50 billion revenue company. So we have many teams that works very closely with vendors to develop solutions, to position products, to position services. We as a cybersecurity division focus very heavily with our services, as well as work very closely with the business unit for their products and positioning certain vendors to the market. C-level management calling for leading the market by innovation. As mentioned, yeah, we have certain in-house developed tools that we position for the management, the maturity assessment and security services, as I'll be talking about in the further slides. As I said, guys, yeah, please feel free to drop in any questions, anything that you have in the chat section, and I will get to them at the end of the session. So further to the 3 points that I mentioned, we are going to be focusing on these 6 pillars, including discovery, CyberGram, virtual lab, our in-house awareness tools that we use for trainings, delivery of GDPR, CISSP, so on and so forth, security bundles, solutioning multi-vendor. So different solutions, different vendors, Kaspersky, FireEye, ForcePoint, etc., and cross-selling between vendors. So that's our main idea here, is to be the leading solutions provider company in the market, not focusing on specific products or specific vendors, but focusing on solutions and selling the best fit technology services, just the best solutions you can think of to the end customer. Right, so I've been mentioning our discovery initiative. So what is the discovery initiative? Essentially, it's an activity, a lead generation activity, a door opener of sorts, if you like. So we work very closely, as I mentioned, with our partners to deliver this activity. It's nothing but an online search. And when I say online search, it's a gross oversimplification of exactly what goes into it. It's a very detailed and in-depth and advanced search on an end customer. So picture this. I am Ingram Micro Cyber Security. We have our trusted partners. They have their trusted the customers that enlist their trust with the partners. So the partners get back in touch with us as Ingram Micro Cyber Security, and we perform this discovery report on their behalf. And all we require from the end customer or the partner that brings us this opportunity is the name and location of the end customer. And based on this information, we perform all these activities that you can see here, searching from search engines, location data, who is lookup, Google hacking, which is, again, an advanced form of Googling, trying to figure out exactly what kind of public information is out there in the internet, freely available, freely accessible to anyone on the internet, essentially. We do search certain dark web platforms as well. However, it's very limited, and we try to keep our searches as much as we can in the public forum, trying to find out, as I mentioned, any kind of information that might be sensitive or held crucial for an entity to hang on to. So, as I said, yeah, you bring us this opportunity, you give us the name and location of the customer, whatever. Since we're in Saudi, let's say STC, or maybe a real estate company like MR or telco, Etisalat, what have you. And then this is all you share with us. And behind the scenes, we do a search. We compile together a report that says all our findings from the public forum, from the internet, be it compromised emails, be it sensitive documents, so on and so forth. So as I mentioned, this is not an intrusive activity. This is not PT. This isn't pen testing. We just do this on the public domain. All we need is the end customer name, and we perform this activity, and we generate a report. And with this report, we essentially knock doors at the customer saying, "Dear Mr. Customer, this is what we found with a few hours of research on the internet about your company. And we can do X, Y, and Z to help you close these gaps and help you address these publicly available sensitive information to work with us and provide solutions to help you better mature your security posture." So I covered this in the last slide. So this is essentially the process flow, as I mentioned, in picturing a scenario where the partner brings us an opportunity, shares the name of the customer and customer with us. We perform this activity, we generate a report, and this can be white labeled again by our partners to knock doors at their said end customer and generate opportunities from that discussion. Essentially, it's a door opener. These are some discovery samples. So as I mentioned in the report, this is what we cover. We scan across their domains. We scan across publicly available IP addresses. We look into databases for CVEs, common vulnerabilities and exposures, to check if certain technology stacks that are implemented in the said end customer's environment, are these up to date? Have these been patched? What are some remedial actions that can be undertaken by them? So these are all the things that we cover in the report, and we share it with the customers in a face-to-face meeting, ideally. However, given the situation and current state of events, probably Teams meetings would be the best option. CyberGram. So as I mentioned, this is our in-house developed tool. It's a maturity assessment tool. So essentially, it's a web portal that we share with our partners, our end customers, and so on and so forth. It goes through a series of questions, and it requires for the user, to the best of his or her knowledge, input these statements or answers to these questions, and we generate a report again on what they can do to mature their security posture. And as you can see here, these are some challenges, let's say, in the field of why it might be difficult to convince a customer, why it might be difficult to engage in a security discussion. Essentially, many of the times it may be the case that the end customer is not informed about the latest cybersecurity threats, the threat vectors, the different actors. There's so much going on. There's so much activity on the internet, sponsored attacks, state-sponsored attacks. So our key goal here is to educate the customers and to let them know what their current security posture is and what they can do to better that. So what is CyberGram? As I mentioned, it's a security maturity assessment tool. We have worked very, very hard behind the scenes, putting together many different frameworks, NISA, NIST, COBIT, PCI, so on and so forth, and coming up with a framework, our own framework. We are following NIST, the domains of NIST. And based on these 5 subcategories, identify, protect, recover, etc., we have segregated certain questions. It's a list of 28 questions, I believe. And based on these questions and the user input to these questions, the goal is to assess maturity of the security posture of the end customer and give recommendations based on that. Right. So CyberGram workflow, again, I feel like I'm one slide ahead of you guys. I keep explaining everything one slide before it shows up. But yeah, I did cover this. As I mentioned, it's 28 questions, questionnaire. So you log in, hand in your details, your company, whatever. And then to the best of your ability, you fill out this questionnaire. Um, Giving feedback whether or not you might be having certain controls as non-existent or have certain controls as very, very mature and up to date. So based on these inputs, we have our own engine in the background that does some analysis, some thresholding, and classifies your responses and gives you a maturity assessment. And based on this assessment, as I mentioned, the goal is to try and engage with the end customer, with the partners, to generate leads, to help them mature their posture. So this is what the dashboard looks like. This is essentially a web portal. You just iamcybergram.com. Click on it, enter your details. It'll ask you for some basic name, email address, etc. Verify yourself to the system, and then all you need to do is click, click, click. And within a few clicks and a few minutes of activity on this web portal, as you can see on the right corner here, it gives you a scoring, a risk scoring of how well adept you are at employing your security solutions, or how much room there is for improvement, and exactly in what domain there is room for improvement. So yeah, it's a door opener again for the end customers to start an engagement, to start talking about certain gaps that they might want to close. And we are the go-to for this. You want to get in touch with us to help you mature your posture based on these resources and based on these tools. Simple tool with high value, very basic, very easy to follow instructions, comes with its own chatbot as well. So it's AI driven, completely able to learn on the go, answer your questions, give you input on how to navigate yourself across this tool, how to answer these questions, and ultimately how to generate this report at the end of it. So this is Zek. He is our mascot for CyberGram. He is there throughout the process of you going through this questionnaire, answering the questions, and he is there to help you, and the chatbot is there to give you live responses based on any queries that you might have. We are there to help you, and so is Zek. Right, virtual lab. So I'm gonna talk here specifically to my pre-sales brothers and sisters. You know how difficult it is, how time consuming it is to deliver a successful POC. And that is exactly the challenge that we're trying to address. I feel like we have addressed with our virtual lab. So in a scenario, picture this. You are a pre-sales engineer. I am. I was up until very recently. We have requests for POCs. We have demo scenarios. We have end customers getting in touch with us for numerous, vast plethora of different technical queries. And in order to do this, the main asset that we as a technical engineer or pre-sales engineer would have is a lab scenario, is to set it up and to perform XYZ actions to show the customer that you might have a certain loophole in your email security. You might have certain gaps in your network security, and this is how we can address it with uh, Kaspersky Lab Threat Intelligence or FireEye Network Security or uh, what have you, what have you. So in this scenario where you have to go on-prem, go to the customer and perform this POC in his environment, in his or her environment, you know it's a time-consuming task. It just takes forever to get everything up and ready. And you get in touch with the customer and you tell them, these are the prerequisites. Dear Mr. Customer, please have this ready prior to my visit. And more often than not, it's really a massive challenge to try and get this done on time. And even in the event that it is done on time, you always face unexpected challenges, unexpected disruptions, and it's just a nightmare to deal with. So in regards to this, our solution to it is the virtual lab. So we have the exact same scenario. We have uh, delivering demos, we have POCs, etc., etc. In certain cases, we might even leverage access to our trusted vendors to use our labs for their technical purposes, for training, onboarding, demoing, etc. So in the virtual lab, instead of the pre-sales engineer having to go and do this from scratch on-prem in a customer environment, you replicate this exact same scenario on the virtual lab. So you get in touch with us, you tell us this is our requirement, we need Y mailbox, we need said endpoint security, we need X1 network security, we need etc., etc., etc. And we set it up for you. We give you access to it, and you follow through with a successful POC without ever having to get into the customer's environment. This is an incredible initiative. This is just a game changer for the market. So I've covered this again in the previous slide, just the process flow of how these things work and how big of a challenge it is for us pre-sales engineers. And the solution to it is our virtual lab. These are some of the benefits. I've covered this as well. So this is essentially the process flow of how you want to request for access to the virtual lab. So what you need to do is fill out a form, an online form, and then we have our solutions architect go over your request form and validate it for its necessity, need, and the kind of requirements that you have for it. He goes ahead and sanctions access to it, and then you can access it from anywhere. All you need is a robust internet connection, good bandwidth, and you're good to go. As part of this as well, further to all of this that we're doing, we are still doing trainings as well, and a huge part of user awareness and customer awareness is trainings. As you may have heard and know and encounter on a day-to-day basis, the weakest link in cybersecurity is the human connect. That is it. You are always susceptible to a phishing email, to smishing activities, to voice calls, all kinds of activities that hold people liable. That is the weakest link in the security chain. And the only way to address that successfully is to generate awareness, is to train the end customers, is to train our partners, and so on and so forth. So in relation to this, as an answer to this, rather, we have our list of trainings that we provide, including some big names that you may have heard, CISSP, GDPR, certain free trainings as well for a half day, an hour, or a day-long session based on the engagement and the level of details that you're looking for the training. Again, please feel free to contact us, generate leads, Let us know if you have people who would be interested in this. We are also working further to all of this on gamification strategies to help users learn, but in a gamified, more easy to deliver, more competitive forum, let's say. These are all work in progress. The trainings, as I mentioned, good to go. We have them now as we speak. Security bundles, as I mentioned, yeah, so we are a solutions focused entity. We carry a broad portfolio of vendors as well as services with us, but our main strategy, our main go-to is to work on the best fit solution for the end customer. And in light of this, we work on security bundles with what have you, force point DLP, Kaspersky endpoint, et cetera, et cetera. We bundle it all into one package, an architecture of the best fit solution for the customer, putting together all these puzzle pieces, different vendors, different products, stitching it all together and giving it as a full-fledged solution to the partner to go ahead and sell to the end customer. As I mentioned in the previous slide, multi-vendor solutioning, we've covered this. So we cater to architectures, we cater to needs, requirements, instead of going at it at a siloed approach, going at it from a vendored approach. We go at it from a solutions approach and bundling together different vendors, different products, different services, different trainings, just a holistic cybersecurity posture improvement activity. This is how we look at it. And this is how we position our solutions from a multi-vendor perspective, stitching together different aspects of your infrastructure and giving you the best possible solution that you have for your end customer. That said, thank you so much for your time. We just need a couple of things from you, actually 3 things from you. Please feel free to keep us involved, keep us engaged, get in touch with us with any opportunities that you might have for discovery. As I mentioned, to perform this online activity to find sensitive data for your end customers as a door opener for them. CyberGram security assessment for your end customer, virtual lab for your pre-sales engineers to have access to a readily available playground for them to conduct POCs, demos, what have you. So this is it. This is it for me. Praveen, please feel to join in. Questions, comments, thoughts, please let me know.
Hello?
Hi, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to wonder, this is Muhammad Lawrence from Nafida International. The assessment you're talking about, it's something you access it through your lab. The lab is in a cloud, that's what it is it, or is a virtual machine that I will go with it to the client, or you will do it?
Right, perfect. Okay, so 2 separate things. You mentioned the security assessment and you mentioned the virtual lab. So it's important to keep in mind that these are 2 distinct initiatives. So the security assessment is an online platform. It's a website. It's imcybergram.com. You go to it, you fill in your details, and then based on the questionnaire, it gives you an assessment report. Like I am, let's say, Emirates Airlines. I'm an employee at Emirates Airlines, and I log into it with my credentials, with my email ID, et cetera, and then I answer these questions to the best of my knowledge. I'm let's say from the networks division. I'm an infrastructure engineer, and I fill out these questions, and it gives me at the end of this questionnaire, at the end of the 28 questions, it gives us a report that tells us on exactly what are the gaps and what we can do to assess these gaps and what we can do to remediate these gaps. So that's CyberGram, that's the tool. And as for the virtual lab, that's a separate initiative, as I mentioned. For that, it is a cloud platform. So it's on the back end, it's VMware. So yeah, we host it on all the virtual machines. Everything is on there, and if you require access to it, we can help you set up your own solutions, your own machines. You can tell us that you have a requirement for as you like, depending on, as long as the vendor, of course, if we carry the vendor in our portfolio, so we do have certain vendors attached to us, attached to the Ingram Micro Security portfolio. It's not all the vendors for sure, but keep in mind it is most of the vendors. Any big name that you can think of, more likely than not, we will have some alignment with them and do some sort of business with them in the region. So yeah, it's important to get in touch with us for exactly which vendor it is, what solution it is, and what's the outcome and which end customer you're trying to target with this initiative. So yeah, two distinct things: virtual lab, cloud platform, VMware, ESXi, I believe it is, and CyberGram web portal for security maturity assessment.
So in this one, we will give you the customer name,
Mm-hmm.
the lead, the place, and then you will give the access to the customer to access, right? This is for the answering the questions for assessments, right?
Exactly.
And the
Exactly.
other one, whatever we can have access and do the assessment, depending your maybe most of the vendor protocol like Qualys
Exactly.
or some.
Exactly.
The problem is what I'm facing here is that the data will be scanned, and where is the data will be kept for the vulnerability that we will find for the, especially for the virtual machine, and yeah, especially if you are doing a scan. This is very critical for a lot of customer. They don't want to have like something from outside scan their network.
100%. Okay. So to answer your questions, what I mentioned about the discovery reports, it is not a scanning activity. So we perform no intrusive actions on it whatsoever. So we don't even need uh, end customer sign off on this. In certain cases, we do request for end customer sign off on this, but it requires nothing. It's essentially just me, an individual on the internet with access to google.com, to the dark web platforms, to et cetera, different websites. So all we do is we search, and that's it. So
Okay,
whatever we
this this
find
this
online,
is this is clear, but I'm talking about the virtual lab.
right?
Is
What
is
about
it
it?
the same? Is it the same what you are saying? You will search from outside. There is nothing from inside as customer, right? This is what I
Ah, okay,
understand.
okay, okay. So,
So,
okay, so
if
two
I
things.
may,
Yeah,
if I
sure.
may add in,
Go ahead.
and so this is Praveen from the cybersecurity COE team. So just to help add clarity to what Abhinav is saying, right? So in the virtual lab, we don't do any scanning assessments or anything of that sort. We only simply provide the infrastructure. And
Mhm.
like you rightly pointed out, sir, it's a cloud-based platform, and we provide the infrastructure to provide demonstrations, to provide POCs for the client, to see how the cybersecurity products that we have, the vendor solutions, how they can actually function, how they can integrate into the client's environment. So there, we don't do any assessments or any test.
Okay, okay, got
Yeah.
you, got you. So if he want
It's
to
it's
check,
it's
for
a virtual
example, any,
environment. Yeah.
so if he want to, let's say, a force point, for example, he want to test the DLB that they have, is that possible
Right.
then?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Absolutely
This is
possible.
what we are providing through the virtual
Okay,
lab.
this is good even for us to check the product, not only the customer. So we need
Definitely.
an access.
Yes.
How we
Yes.
will do it? We will send you an email.
Yes. So you
Correct.
simply need to send an email to our team, which is cyber.meta, cyber, CYBER dot META.
You can type it in the search. I think it's good for
Yes.
everybody here.
We're going to do that. We will be sending the email and the contact
خلاص.
information as well,
Great, great.
and we'll take it from there, definitely.
Okay, thank you very much
Thank you,
for
sir.
your time
Thank
and
you so
collaboration.
Perfect. Perfect.
Okay.
We also have one more question from Ehsan Snober on the chat.
Mhm.
And the question is, do you perform discovery actively or passively when you assess the infrastructure, and does it require customer consent? So you had
Right.
already addressed
So
this, but
I feel like, yeah, I feel like I covered this as well. So number two, to further clarify, as I mentioned, it's no scanning. There's no pen testing. There is no intrusive efforts on the end customer. It's just a search. And as for the sign off, in certain cases, we can inform the customer that this is what we're doing prior to doing the activity, but honestly, it does not. It does not require any customer sign off. It does not require any document. Honestly, it's just an activity that's for the public domain. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you
Anything
so much,
else
Abhinav.
from anyone? Thank you, Praveen.
All right, I don't see any other questions.
All right.
And take this opportunity to thank you, Abhinav, especially. It was a very, very insightful session. Thank you to all the people who have joined us. We are very, very happy for this opportunity to speak with you. And we are also very happy about the mutual participation that you have shown. Thank you so much. The session has been recorded, as you are aware. We'll be publishing the recording as well. So if you want to come back and see the slides or catch up on something, definitely the recording will be available to you. The email ID is cyber.meta. I just put it into the chat. Please use it to send us your requests for CyberGram. You can send it to your end customers, or even to evaluate products and vendors. You can access it through, you can do this through the virtual lab, or even for discovery reports. Just give us the name of the client. We will prepare the discovery report like how Abhinav mentioned and give it back to you. We just need about 2 to 5 business days to complete the report for each client, and we'll send it back to you. Right. So the toolkit is a massive way in which we can partner together and open the doors for cybersecurity with your end customers. Thank you so much. And
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Praveen.
absolutely, Abhinav. And on behalf of the entire team here at Ingram Micro, have an excellent day. We'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.